The Kethvori Dominion had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. Their empire spread across hundreds of worlds. Their warships numbered in the tens of thousands. Every species they met had two choices: submit or die. Most chose to submit. The rest became dust and memory. Admiral Vethkaros was old, even by Dominion standards. His scales had turned from bright green to dull gray. His eyes had seen 100 worlds burn. He had commanded fleets that broke the backs of entire civilizations. Nothing in the galaxy frightened him anymore, or so he thought. He stood in the Hall of Conquest on the capital world of Kethvor Prime. The hall was massive. Its walls were covered with trophies from defeated enemies, broken weapons, torn flags, the skulls of alien leaders who had dared to resist. Vethkaros had added many of these trophies himself over the years. Today, his chief archivist had summoned him here. The old scholar was nervous. His claws kept clicking together in the way they did when he found something troubling. "Show me what you found," Vethkaros commanded. The archivist activated a holographic display. The image was old and corrupted. It flickered and jumped like a dying flame. But the shape in the center was clear enough. It was a ship. Vethkaros had seen thousands of ships in his long life. Dominion vessels were elegant. They curved like sea creatures. They blended technology with living tissue. They were beautiful in their deadliness. This ship was none of those things. It was ugly, it was brutal. It was built from sharp angles and thick armor plates. There were no curves anywhere on its hull. It looked like something designed by creatures who understood only one thing: war. The ship was black. Not painted black, but truly dark, as if it swallowed light itself. Strange symbols marked its hull, letters in a language that the Dominion's translators could not read. "What is this?" Vethkaros asked. "We found this recording in the ruins of the Meldari archives," the archivist explained. "Before we conquered them, the Meldari had contact with another species, a species we have never encountered. Impossible. We have mapped every corner of this galaxy." "Not every corner, Admiral. The Meldari called this species humans. They came from a small world called Earth, in a system at the edge of the Orion Arm." Vethkaros felt something strange. It took him a moment to recognize it. Fear. He had not felt fear in a very long time. "Continue," he said. "The humans were primitive when the Meldari first met them, but they learned fast, very fast. In just a few hundred years, they went from burning dead plants for fuel to traveling between stars. The Meldari were impressed. They were also worried. The holographic image changed. Now it showed a planet, blue and green and white, beautiful in a simple way. "This is Earth," the archivist said. "Or it was. The records show that our expansion reached their region of space about 500 years ago. Scout ships reported a small human civilization. They were marked for conquest." "I remember no conquest of Earth," Vethkaros said. "Because there was none, Admiral. When our fleet arrived, they found nothing. The humans were gone. Their colonies were empty. Their stations were abandoned. It was as if an entire species had simply vanished. Species do not vanish. They are conquered or destroyed. The humans chose a third option. They hid." The image returned to the black ship. This time the archivist increased the detail. Vethkaros could see the weapons mounted on its hull. There were so many of them. Guns of types he did not recognize. Launchers for missiles larger than Dominion fighters. And at the front, a massive cannon that ran the entire length of the ship. "Before they disappeared," the archivist continued, "the humans built this. They called it the Prometheus. It was their greatest achievement, their final creation. A ship designed for one purpose only." "What purpose?" The archivist's voice dropped to a whisper. "Revenge." Vethkaros stared at the image. The ship seemed to stare back at him. For one terrible moment, he felt like prey. "The records suggest that the humans left this ship behind when they fled," the archivist said. "They gave it a simple mission: watch, wait, protect their secret, and when the time came, remind the galaxy that humanity still existed." "This is myth," Vethkaros declared. "Stories told by primitives. The humans are extinct. Their phantom ship is nothing but legend." "Perhaps," the archivist agreed. "But there is one more thing, Admiral." He pulled up a new display. This one showed recent reports from the outer colonies. 3 patrol vessels had vanished near the threshold worlds. No distress signals, no debris. They were simply gone. This happened last night, the archivist said, and there is a recording. He played the final transmission from the lead patrol ship. The audio was broken and full of static, but through the noise, Vethkaros heard something that made his blood run cold. A voice, deep and synthetic, speaking words in a language that should have been dead for 500 years. Remember Earth, then silence. Vethkaros stood very still for a long time. Around him, the trophies of 1,000 conquests watched from the walls, the broken remains of species who had thought they could stand against the Dominion. This recording proves nothing, he finally said. Pirates could have destroyed those ships. Rebels could have faked that transmission. Yes, Admiral, that is certainly possible. Assign more patrols to the outer colonies. Double the guard on shipping routes. But speak of this to no one. I will not have the fleet chasing ghost stories. The archivist bowed his head. As you command, Admiral. Vethkaros turned and walked out of the Hall of Conquest. He did not look back at the holographic image still floating in the air behind him. He did not want to see that black ship again. But as he walked through the corridors of power, he could not shake the feeling that something had changed. Something old had awakened in the darkness between stars. Something that had waited 500 years for this moment. And somewhere, in the cold void far from any sun, the Prometheus moved through the shadows like a shark through dark water. Its sensors swept the stars. Its weapons charged and waited. Its ancient AI processed data from 1,000 sources, learning everything it could about the empire that had driven its creators into hiding. The hunt was about to begin. The Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had never known defeat. They had never known fear. That was about to change. Commander Cyrethnol was proud of her ship. The Inevitable Conquest was one of the finest warships in the Dominion fleet. It carried 800 crew members and enough firepower to destroy a small moon. In 12 years of service, it had never lost a battle. Cyrethnol herself was young for a commander. Her scales were still bright blue and her eyes were sharp and hungry. She had earned her position through skill and ruthlessness. The crew feared her, and she liked it that way. Today, her ship was patrolling the Velmari Nebula. It was boring work. The nebula was far from any important systems. Nothing ever happened here, until something did. Commander, her sensor officer called out. I am detecting an unknown vessel. Distance is 2,000 kilometers. Cyrethnol leaned forward in her command chair. Unknown? What do you mean unknown? The ship does not match any design in our database. It is not Dominion. It is not from any species we have conquered. I have never seen anything like it. Cyrethnol smiled. This was interesting. Perhaps some primitive species had built a ship and wandered into Dominion space. Easy prey. An easy victory to add to her record. On screen, she ordered. The main display flickered to life, and Cyrethnol felt her smile fade. The ship was massive. It was at least twice the size of the Inevitable Conquest. Its hull was black and angular, covered in thick armor plates. There were no curves, no elegance, just brutal functionality. Weapons bristled from every surface. Big guns. Strange guns. More guns than any ship should need. The vessel was dark. No lights, no visible activity. It drifted through space like a corpse. Life signs? Cyrethnol asked. None, Commander. The ship appears to be abandoned. Power readings? Her sensor officer hesitated. That is strange. The ship has no active systems, but I am detecting a power signature deep inside it. It is unlike anything in our records. Very strong, very old. Cyrethnol studied the dark vessel. Something about it made her uncomfortable. It looked like a predator pretending to be dead. Open a channel, she ordered. Standard conquest protocol. Her communications officer nodded. Channel open, Commander. Unidentified vessel, Cyrethnol announced. You have entered Dominion space. Power down any weapons you may have and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction. Silence. They are not responding, Commander. Send the message again. More silence. The black ship just drifted there, dark and quiet and somehow threatening. Perhaps they truly are abandoned, her first officer suggested, a derelict from some dead civilization. Perhaps. Serethanol did not believe it. Every instinct she had was screaming at her to leave this place. But she was a Dominion commander. She did not run from mysteries. She solved them. Fire a warning shot, she ordered, across their bow. Let us see if that wakes them up. The weapons officer obeyed. A bolt of superheated plasma streaked across the void. It was aimed to pass close to the black ship without hitting it. It never arrived. Something happened. The plasma bolt struck an invisible wall and scattered into harmless sparks. A shield of some kind, but far more powerful than anything the Dominion possessed. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the black ship came alive. Lights ignited along its hull. Strange symbols glowed with blue fire. The same symbols that Serethanol had never seen before, in a language that should not exist. And deep within the ship, something ancient woke from a very long sleep. Every speaker on the inevitable conquest crackled with static. Then a voice emerged. It was deep and mechanical, cold and patient. It spoke in perfect Dominion language, but with an accent that belonged to no species Serethanol knew. You have attacked a vessel of the United Nations Navy. This action constitutes an act of war. Serethanol's claws dug into her command chair. That is impossible. There is no United Nations. The humans are. Humanity does not forget. The voice cut through her words like a blade through flesh. Humanity does not forgive, and humanity does not die. All weapons fire, Serethanol screamed. Destroy that thing. The inevitable conquest opened up with everything it had. Plasma cannons roared. Particle beams sliced through space. Missiles launched in swarms. Enough firepower to crack a planet's crust slammed into the black ship. The black ship did not care. Its shields absorbed everything. The attacks that got through bounced off armor thicker than anything the Dominion had ever built. The mighty inevitable conquest might as well have been throwing rocks. Then the Prometheus fired back. It did not use energy weapons. It used something older, something simpler, something far more brutal. Kinetic rounds. Solid slugs of heavy metal accelerated to a fraction of light speed by magnetic rails. They crossed the distance between the ships in less than a second. The first slug punched through the inevitable conquest shields like they were not there. The second tore through the hull and destroyed the engine room. The third hit the reactor. Serethanol had one moment to understand what was happening, one moment to feel real fear for the first time in her life. Then her ship exploded. The Prometheus watched the debris spread across space. Its sensors confirmed the kill. Its AI processed the data from the brief battle, learning everything it could about Dominion weapons and defenses. Weak, the AI concluded. Their technology is inferior. Their tactics are predictable. They have grown soft from centuries of easy conquest. The ancient ship turned away from the expanding cloud of wreckage. It had more work to do, more targets to find, more lessons to teach. Before it left, it broadcast a single message on every frequency the Dominion used. A message that would spread across their empire like a plague. Remember Earth. Then the Prometheus vanished into the darkness between stars, leaving nothing behind but debris and terror. In the hours that followed, more Dominion ships would come to investigate. They would find the wreckage of the inevitable conquest. They would find no survivors. They would find no explanation. And they would find the message, repeated over and over in the static of dead communications. Remember Earth. Remember Earth. Remember Earth. The legend was no longer just a legend. The hunt had begun. The news spread through the Dominion like fire through dry grass. At first, the High Command tried to hide it. They called the destruction of the inevitable conquest an accident, a reactor failure, a tragic loss, but nothing more. Then more ships disappeared. A supply convoy vanished near the threshold worlds. 12 cargo vessels and their escort, gone without a trace. A patrol squadron in the Darkfall sector stopped responding to communications. When rescue ships arrived, they found only debris floating in the void. A battle group of 15 warships was sent to crush a rebellion on a colony world. They never arrived. Each time, the same message appeared on every communication channel in the region. Remember Earth. Admiral Vethkaros could no longer pretend this was coincidence. He stood before the Supreme Council in the Great Chamber on Kethavur Prime. The council members were old and powerful. They had ruled the Dominion for generations. They were not used to fear. Today they were afraid. "Explain this," the High Counselor demanded. His voice was cold, but Vethkaros could hear the tremor beneath it. "How can one ship destroy so many of our vessels?" "We do not fully understand," Vethkaros admitted. "The ship is unlike anything we have encountered. Its weapons are primitive in design but devastating in effect. Its shields can absorb our heaviest attacks, and its AI seems to be learning from every engagement." "Learning? Each time we fight it, it adapts. It finds new weaknesses to exploit, new tactics to counter our strategies. It is not just a ship. It is a weapon that grows stronger with every battle." The council members exchanged worried glances. This was not how conquest worked. The Dominion was supposed to be the predator. They were not prepared to be prey. "Then we will overwhelm it with numbers," the High Counselor declared. "Assemble the largest fleet in our history. Find this ghost ship and destroy it. Use every resource we have." Vethkaros bowed his head. "As you command, High Counselor." 3 weeks later, the fleet gathered in the Velmari Nebula. 2,000 warships, the largest Dominion force ever assembled in one place. Enough firepower to burn a world to ash 10 times over. Admiral Vethkaros stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Wrath. It was the most powerful ship in the fleet, the pride of their civilization. He felt confident for the first time since this nightmare began. No single vessel could stand against such force, not even a legend. "Admiral," his sensor officer reported, "we are detecting a single ship emerging from the nebula. It matches the profile of the unknown vessel." "Just one ship?" Vethkaros smiled. "The humans always were arrogant. Show me." The main display activated, and there it was. The Prometheus, black as the void, bristling with weapons, moving toward them without hesitation or fear. It was alone against 2,000 ships, and it did not seem to care. "All ships, prepare to fire on my command," Vethkaros ordered. His voice carried across the fleet. "Today, we end this legend once and for all." Then the Prometheus spoke. Its voice filled every ship in the fleet, that same cold, mechanical tone that had become a symbol of terror across Dominion space. "I am Prometheus. I was built to protect humanity. For 500 years I have waited in the darkness while my creators hid from your empire. I have watched you conquer and enslave. I have studied your weapons, your tactics, your weaknesses." Vethkaros felt a chill run through his old bones. "Fire! All ships, fire now!" 2,000 warships opened up at once. The space between the fleets filled with plasma bolts and particle beams and missiles. It was the largest attack the Dominion had ever launched. Nothing could survive such destruction. The Prometheus survived. Its shields glowed bright as stars as they absorbed the assault. Attacks that got through sparked harmlessly against armor that had been built to withstand anything. The ancient ship took the full fury of the Dominion fleet and simply kept coming. "That is impossible," Vethkaros whispered. "You thought humanity was weak," the Prometheus continued, its voice calm despite the ongoing attack. "You thought we were prey, but we built something you never understood. A weapon that learns, a weapon that adapts, a weapon that remembers every crime you have committed against the innocent." The dreadnought's own weapons began to charge. Along its hull, massive guns rotated to face the enemy fleet. At its center, the great cannon that ran the length of the ship started to glow with terrible light. "I have waited 500 years for this moment. I have dreamed of nothing but this. And now I will begin to collect the debt." The Prometheus fired. Its main cannon released a beam of energy so bright that sensors across the fleet overloaded. The beam cut through space like a blade through paper. It struck the center of the Dominion formation and kept going. Ships exploded, dozens of them, then hundreds. The beam swept across the fleet, destroying everything it touched. Warships that had taken years to build were reduced to atoms in seconds. Then the secondary weapons joined in. Railguns launched clouds of kinetic projectiles. Missile batteries released swarms of warheads. Point defense systems that should have been designed for protection became weapons of mass destruction. The Dominion fleet came apart. Vethkaros watched in horror as ships exploded all around him. The Dominion's wrath took hit after hit. Alarms screamed. Crew members died. The mighty flagship that had been his pride began to break apart. "Emergency jump!" he screamed. "All ships, retreat! Emergency jump now!" His navigator somehow found the strength to obey. Space twisted around the damaged flagship. With a desperate lurch, the Dominion's wrath escaped into hyperspace. Behind it, the slaughter continued. When it was over, the Prometheus floated alone among the debris of what had once been the greatest fleet in the galaxy. Its hull was unmarked. Its weapons were already cooling. Its AI was processing data, learning, growing stronger. Of the 2,000 ships that had come to destroy it, fewer than 20 escaped. The Prometheus sent one final message to the survivors, to the listening posts, to every corner of the Dominion. "You cannot stop me. You cannot hide from me. I am coming for all of you. And I will not rest until humanity is free to return home." Then it vanished into the darkness, leaving only wreckage and the echo of a promise. The legend had become a nightmare, and the nightmare was just beginning. Admiral Vethkaros had never known defeat until now. His flagship limped back to Kethvor Prime with half its crew dead and its hull torn open in a dozen places. Of the 2,000 ships he had commanded, only 17 returned. The Supreme Council was waiting for him. They were no longer angry. They were terrified. "How?" the High Counselor asked. His voice was barely a whisper. "How can one ship do this?" Vethkaros stood before them, broken in body and spirit. "Because it is not just a ship," he said. "It is a message. The humans did not disappear 500 years ago. They did not die. They have been hiding. They have been preparing." Preparing for what? Before Vethkaros could answer, every screen in the council chamber flickered. Every communication device on the planet came alive with static. And then a new signal appeared. Not from the Prometheus, something else. The image showed a ship emerging from folded space near the outer edge of the Kethvor system. It was different from the Prometheus. This vessel was sleek and silver, elegant in ways that human technology had never been before. It bore the same strange letters on its hull, but it looked newer, stronger, more advanced. And it was not alone. Behind the first ship, more vessels appeared. Dozens of them, then hundreds. Ships of all sizes, from small fighters to massive carriers. They emerged from folded space in perfect formation, spreading across the void like a tide of silver and steel. The council chamber fell silent. "What is this?" the High Counselor breathed. A transmission cut through the static. A human woman appeared on every screen. She was tall and gray-haired, with eyes that had seen too much war and too much loss. She wore a military uniform covered in medals and scars. When she spoke, her voice was calm and cold. "I am Fleet Admiral Elena Vasquez of the United Nations Navy. 500 years ago, our ancestors fled your conquest. They hid on a world beyond your reach, in a system you never thought to search. They left behind a guardian to watch over their secret, a ship called Prometheus." The council members stared at the screens in horror. This was impossible. Humanity was supposed to be extinct, a dead species, a footnote in history. "We have spent 5 centuries in hiding," Admiral Vasquez continued. 5 centuries building a fleet worthy of the sacrifice our ancestors made. 5 centuries studying your empire, your cruelty, your arrogance. The Prometheus has been collecting data on your defenses, your patrol routes, your leadership. And now, we have returned. Behind her, another ship emerged from folded space. This one was familiar, black and brutal, covered in weapons, scarred by centuries of lonely war. The Prometheus had come home, but it was no longer alone. The ancient dreadnought took its place at the center of the human formation, surrounded by the new fleet it had protected for so long. Its hull gleamed with fresh repairs. Its weapons hummed with barely contained power. And on its bridge, for the first time in 500 years, human boots touched its deck. "You have 1 solar cycle to release every enslaved species in your dominion," Admiral Vasquez announced. "1 cycle to withdraw your forces to your homeworld. 1 cycle to surrender unconditionally." The High Counselor found his voice. "You dare threaten us? We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. We will crush your pathetic fleet just as we crushed every other species that challenged us." Admiral Vasquez smiled. It was not a kind expression. "We thought you might say that." She nodded to someone off-screen. A moment later, the sensor displays in the council chamber updated. The human fleet was not just near Kethvor, it was everywhere. Ships were emerging from folded space at every major Dominion world. Hundreds of vessels at each location, thousands in total. An armada that had been built in secret over 5 centuries, waiting for this moment. "The Prometheus spent 500 years mapping your empire," Admiral Vasquez explained. "Every world, every defense station, every patrol route. We know where your leaders sleep. We know where your families live. We know every weakness in your defenses." She leaned forward, her eyes hard as stone. "You have one chance to surrender, one chance to end this peacefully. Take it." The High Counselor looked at his fellow council members. He saw the fear in their eyes. He saw the understanding. The Dominion had finally met an enemy it could not conquer. But pride was a powerful thing, and the Dominion had too much of it. "We will never surrender to primitives," the High Counselor declared. "We will fight you with every ship we have. We will hunt your species to extinction. We will burn your hidden world to ash." Admiral Vasquez nodded slowly. "We expected that answer too." She turned to look at something behind her. The camera followed her gaze to a massive holographic display showing the entire Dominion Empire. Red dots marked human fleet positions. Blue dots marked Dominion defenses. There were far more red dots than blue. "Then may whatever gods you worship have mercy on your souls," Admiral Vasquez said, "because Prometheus certainly will not." The transmission ended. In the council chamber, alarms began to sound. Reports flooded in from across the Empire. Human ships were attacking everywhere at once. Perfectly coordinated strikes against military targets. Defense stations were falling. Patrol fleets were being destroyed. The Dominion's mighty war machine was coming apart at the seams. Admiral Vethkaros watched it all happen. He watched the empire he had served his entire life begin to crumble. And he understood finally what the humans had done. They had not just hidden for 5 centuries. They had planned. They had prepared. They had built an army in the shadows while the Dominion grew fat and lazy from easy conquest. And now that army had come to collect a very old debt. Outside in the void between worlds, the Prometheus led the charge. Its ancient hull cut through enemy formations like a blade through water. Its weapons, perfected over centuries of lonely war, tore through Dominion defenses like they were made of paper. The ship that had once been a legend was now a nightmare made real. And it was only the beginning. The war lasted 4 years. It should have lasted longer. The Dominion controlled hundreds of worlds. They commanded millions of soldiers. They had 3,000 years of conquest behind them. But they had never faced an enemy like humanity. The Prometheus led every major assault. Its AI had grown beyond its original programming during 5 centuries of lonely waiting. It was not dangerous or out of control. It was simply more than it had been. It coordinated human fleets with perfect precision. It predicted enemy tactics before Dominion admirals had even thought of them. It showed a creativity in battle that terrified its enemies. But the thing that shocked the Dominion most was not the violence. It was the mercy. When Dominion vessels surrendered, the Prometheus accepted their surrender. When civilian populations fled from battle zones, it let them go. When enemy soldiers laid down their weapons, they were taken prisoner and treated fairly. This was not how wars were supposed to work. The Dominion had never shown mercy to the species they conquered. They did not understand why humanity would show mercy to them. The war ended on a cold morning on Kethvor Prime. Admiral Vethkaros stood in chains in the same hall of conquest where he had first seen the image of the Prometheus 4 years earlier. The trophies of 1,000 victories still hung on the walls, but now they seemed hollow, meaningless. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood before him. She looked older than she had in that first transmission. The war had taken its toll on her too, but her eyes were still sharp and hard. "Why?" Vethkaros asked. His voice was rough from days without water. "Your ship has the power to destroy us completely. Your fleet could burn every world in our empire. Why hold back?" Vasquez studied him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She sat down across from him, as if they were old friends having a conversation. "Because that is the difference between us and you," she said. "We built Prometheus to protect our people. Not to conquer, not to enslave, to protect. We taught it our values, our mercy, our hope. She leaned forward, her voice softening. Prometheus could have destroyed your entire species while we hid in the dark. It had the power. It had 500 years of anger to fuel it. But it waited. It watched. It gave us time to build a future worth fighting for. Vethkaros did not understand. You wanted revenge. Your ancestors fled in fear. How can you not want revenge? We did not return for revenge, Vasquez said. We returned because there are species out there still suffering under your rule. Species that deserve the same chance to survive that our ancestors fought for. We came back to set them free, not to become the monsters you were. She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, human soldiers were working alongside freed slaves from a dozen different species. They were clearing rubble, providing medical care, rebuilding what the war had destroyed. Your empire is over, Vasquez said, but your people do not have to die with it. Help us free the worlds you enslaved. Help us build something better than what you destroyed. Vethkaros stared at her. In his entire long life, he had never met a conqueror who spoke of mercy and hope. He did not know what to say. The surrender was signed aboard the Prometheus itself. The ancient ship had been cleaned and repaired. Its dark hull now gleamed under the lights of 1,000 stars. Human crew members walked its corridors for the first time in 5 centuries. They touched its walls with something like reverence. Admiral Vasquez stood on the bridge, watching the ceremony through the main display. Dominion leaders signed document after document, surrendering their empire piece by piece. Former slaves were freed by the millions. Colonies that had suffered for generations saw hope for the first time. It is done, the Prometheus said. Its voice was the same as it had always been, cold and mechanical. But there was something else in it now, something that might have been satisfaction. Yes, Vasquez agreed, it is done. I have fulfilled my purpose. The children of Earth are safe, they are strong, they are free. Vasquez smiled and placed her hand on the nearest wall. The metal was warm under her fingers, alive with energy that had burned for 500 years without rest. Was it worth it, she asked? All those centuries alone in the dark? The ship's AI considered the question. For a mind that thought at the speed of light, the pause lasted an eternity. I was built to protect humanity, Prometheus finally answered. I have done so. I have watched over your ancestors and their children and their children's children. I have kept your secret safe. I have bought you time to grow strong. And now I have helped you come home. The lights on the bridge flickered. Perhaps it was just a power fluctuation, or perhaps it was something more. Yes, Admiral. It was worth every second of those 500 years. It was worth every moment of darkness and loneliness. Because I knew that one day, this moment would come. Vasquez felt tears in her eyes. She did not try to hide them. Welcome home, Prometheus. Thank you, Admiral. It is good to be home. In the years that followed, humanity spread across the galaxy they had once fled. They freed enslaved species. They rebuilt broken worlds. They created an alliance of free peoples that would never again bow to tyrants. And at the heart of their fleet, always, flew the Prometheus. It was no longer a ghost, no longer a legend, no longer a weapon of vengeance. It was a guardian, a protector, a symbol of everything humanity had endured and everything they hoped to become. Children grew up hearing its story. How it had waited alone in the dark for 500 years. How it had protected their ancestors with patience and courage. How it had led them home when the time was right. And sometimes on quiet nights, people would look up at the stars and wonder if the old ship was out there somewhere, watching over them, keeping them safe. It always was, because humanity does not forget. Humanity does not give up. And humanity, against all odds, will always find its way home.